April 1945. Germany. A German town had officially surrendered to the Third Army. Patton was there to oversee the surrender, moving through the town square and meeting with the local German commander to confirm the terms. The Wehrmacht officer was a colonel, tall, gray-haired, and a lifelong soldier who had served on the Eastern Front. He had come to hand over his garrison and formally surrender his troops and their weapons. The event was expected to be simple, just another routine surrender. The German soldiers would give up their arms. The Americans would take control. The same process already taking place in towns across Germany. But while Patton was standing there looking over the surrender papers, something completely unexpected happened. The Wehrmacht colonel moved his hand toward his sidearm. In one quick motion, he pulled out his Luger pistol and aimed it straight at Patton's chest from 4 feet away, at point-blank range. The American MPs around Patton instantly reached for their weapons. Soldiers lifted their rifles. The entire square went silent. But Patton never moved. He didn't flinch. He didn't step back. He simply stared at the German colonel and the pistol aimed directly at him. And then he did something nobody standing in that square would ever forget. It would later become one of the most discussed moments of the war. This is the story of what Patton did when a Wehrmacht officer pointed a gun at him. Before we continue with this confrontation, if you enjoy untold stories from World War II, make sure to subscribe. The colonel's name was Oberst Heinrich Miller. He was 52 years old. He had served in the Wehrmacht for 3 decades. He had fought in Poland, in France, and spent 3 brutal years battling the Russians on the Eastern Front. He had watched Germany rise from one victory to another, only to see everything fall apart in the end. He had survived Stalingrad and witnessed an entire army disappear in the snow. He had retreated across Poland and watched German cities burn under Allied bombing raids. He had seen the destruction of everything he had spent his life fighting for. By April 1945, Miller's garrison was surrounded and completely cut off. The war was obviously finished. Orders from Berlin had stopped arriving. The radio had gone quiet. He was completely on his own. His choices were simple: surrender or die in a battle that could no longer be won. He chose to surrender, but accepting it was not easy. For a man who had spent his entire adult life in uniform, a man whose identity was built around his rank in military service, surrender felt like the end of his life. When Patton arrived to accept the surrender, Miller stood in the town square beside his remaining officers, around 30 men, all that remained of a unit that had once included thousands. Soldiers who had fought beside him for years and survived while so many others had not. The ceremony started as expected. Patton's aide read the conditions aloud: unconditional surrender, all weapons handed over, all soldiers placed into custody as prisoners of war, the same terms being repeated across Germany, again and again. Miller listened carefully. His face revealed nothing, but inside him the pressure was growing. He had spent 30 years serving as a German officer. He had led soldiers into battle. He had fought for his country. And now he was being ordered to hand over his sidearm, the officer's pistol that represented his rank and his honor. To him, it felt impossible to accept. As Patton stood there studying the surrender papers, Miller made up his mind. He slowly moved his hand downward. His fingers reached for the holster. Then, in one smooth and trained motion, he pulled out his Luger. The sound of leather and metal echoed through the silent square. Every American soldier reacted immediately. MPs reached for their weapons. Soldiers who had been standing calmly suddenly raised their rifles. Safeties clicked off. But Patton showed no reaction at all. He lifted his eyes from the documents, saw the Luger aimed directly at his chest, and his expression never changed. He didn't reach for his ivory-handled revolvers. He didn't ask for help. He didn't order his men to fire. He simply stood there, 4 feet away from a loaded pistol, staring at Miller. The silence grew heavier. Every second seemed to last forever. Miller's hand never shook. The pistol was aimed straight at Patton's heart. One pull of the trigger, and the most famous American general in Europe would be dead. At last, Patton spoke. "Are you going to shoot me, Colonel?" His voice was steady and calm, almost casual, as if he were discussing the weather. Miller said nothing, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. "Because if you are," Patton continued, "then you'd better do it now. My men have about 5 seconds before they cut you in half." It was true. At least 20 American rifles were now aimed directly at Miller. The MPs already had their pistols out. One command from Patton and Miller would be dead before he even reached the ground. But Patton never gave the order. Instead, he stepped closer to the gun. Now he stood only 3 feet away. "You're thinking about it," Patton said. "I can see it in your face. You're wondering if killing me would be worth dying for, if taking out one American general could somehow change the way this war ends." Miller's expression did not change, and the pistol remained perfectly steady. "Let me make this easier for you," Patton said. "It won't matter. The war is finished. Germany has lost, and killing me won't change that. All it will do is get you killed and force your men to watch you die for nothing." He stepped even closer. Now he was only 2 feet from the barrel of the Luger. "You're a professional soldier," Patton continued. 30 years in uniform. A veteran of the Eastern Front. You already know how this ends. You understand what happens when a man points a gun at a general surrounded by his own soldiers. You've fought long enough to understand the numbers. Maybe you kill me, but 3 seconds later you're dead too, and some of your men will probably die when my soldiers start firing. Is that really what you want? More men dying during the final days of a war that's already finished? For the first time, Miller finally spoke. His English was clear and precise. "Learned before the war, back when Germany still had ties with the wider world," he replied. "You ask me if I will shoot you. Perhaps I should ask why I should not. You have destroyed my country, burned our cities, killed our civilians, and now you come to take even our honor." "Fair question," Patton said. "Here is your answer. Because you are not a murderer, you are a soldier. There is a difference." "Is there?" Miller answered. "I have killed many men in this war, in combat." "That is different," Patton replied. "But right now this is not combat. This is a surrender ceremony. If you pull that trigger now, you are no longer a soldier. You are just a man who shot an unarmed officer during a truce. That is not warfare. That is murder." Miller's grip on the pistol tightened. "You speak of honor, of what a soldier should be, yet you are asking me to surrender my sidearm. You are asking me to give up the symbol of my rank, my honor." "I am not asking you to give up your honor," Patton said. "I am asking you to accept reality. The war is over. You lost. That is not dishonor. That is simply how wars end. One side wins, the other loses. You fought hard. You fought well. But fighting well does not change the result. Germany has surrendered. The Wehrmacht has surrendered. And now, you are surrendering too. That is not shame. That is survival." "Easy for the winner to say," Miller replied. "You think I have not lost anything?" Patton's voice sharpened slightly. "I have lost men, thousands of them. Good soldiers who died because they followed my orders. Boys who should be home with their families right now. Do you think that is easy? Do you think I do not carry every single one of those deaths with me? Winning does not mean you did not lose something." He motioned toward the ruined buildings around them. "This war has taken from everyone. German, American, Russian, British. Everyone has lost something. The only question now is whether we add more bodies to the count, or whether we are smart enough to stop it now." Miller stayed silent for a long moment. The gun was still aimed at Patton, but something in his face had started to change. "You do not understand," he finally said. "For 30 years I have been an officer of the Wehrmacht. My pistol is not just a weapon. It is who I am." "No," Patton said quietly. "It is what you were. What you are now is a soldier who must decide whether to die for a piece of metal, or live and go home to whatever family you have left. I have no family. They died in the bombing of Dresden." The square fell completely silent. Even the American soldiers had stopped moving. "Then do not die for nothing," Patton said. "Your family is gone. The war is over. Your country has surrendered. Pulling that trigger will not bring any of them back. It will only add your name to the list of men who died in the final days of a war that was already lost." For a long moment, nothing moved. Miller stood there, the pistol still aimed at Patton's chest, his finger resting on the trigger. The weight of 30 years pressed down on him, everything he had been, everything he had fought for, everything that was now ending in this moment. Then, slowly, his hand began to lower. The Luger came down inch by inch. The barrel dropped from Patton's chest to his stomach, then to his waist, until it finally pointed at the ground. His arm hung by his side. The fight had left him, not from fear, but from understanding. from acceptance of what Patton had said. The war was over. This moment was over. Everything was over. Patton reached out calmly and took the pistol from Miller's hand. The colonel did not resist. His hand was trembling now, not from fear, but from something deeper. Exhaustion, grief, and the weight of everything he had just lost. Patton looked at the Luger for a moment, then did something that caught everyone off guard. He handed it back. "Keep it," Patton said. "You are right. You have carried that weapon for 30 years. You have earned it. I am not going to take a soldier's honor, not like this." Miller stared at the pistol in his hand, then looked at Patton in disbelief. "I do not understand," he said. "I pointed this weapon at you, and you did not shoot." "That is the difference between a soldier and a murderer," Patton replied. "You had the chance. You chose not to take it. That takes more courage than pulling the trigger ever would." Patton then turned to his aide. "Make a note. Colonel Miller is to keep his sidearm. He has given his word that the fighting is over. That is good enough for me." The aide looked stunned. "Sir, regulations state that all enemy officers must surrender their weapons." "I don't care about regulations," Patton said firmly. "This man just had a gun pointed at me and chose not to fire. He had the chance to kill me, 4 feet away, point blank, and he didn't. He could have pulled that trigger, and I would be dead. But he didn't. That tells me everything I need to know. He is not a threat. He is a soldier who has seen his world collapse. Let him keep whatever dignity he has left. Let him walk away with something." Miller stood there holding the Luger. Tears were now running down his face, not from fear, but from something deeper. Relief, respect, and the weight of realizing what Patton had just done for him. "I will never forget this," Miller said quietly. "Neither will I," Patton replied. "Now, go. Surrender your men properly and return home when this is over." The surrender process continued, but the atmosphere had completely changed. The German soldiers had seen their colonel raise a gun at an American general, and they had also seen that general respond with restraint and mercy. News of the incident spread quickly through the Third Army and among German prisoners. With every retelling, the story grew larger. Years later, military historians would still debate what had happened in that square. Some believed Patton had taken an unnecessary risk, arguing that he should have ordered Miller disarmed and arrested immediately. Others believed his decision had prevented a far worse outcome. If he had given the order to fire, Miller would have been killed, but others might have died as well. In the confusion that followed, American troops could have been caught in crossfire, and German officers might have tried to protect their commander. The situation could have escalated into full chaos in seconds. Dozens of lives could have been lost in those final days of the war. Instead, Patton had managed to talk down a desperate man. He understood that Miller was not trying to start a fight. He was trying to hold on to the last remaining part of his identity as a soldier, and in that moment, Patton gave it back to him. As for Miller, he kept his word. He completed the surrender of his men without resistance and without any further incident. He was taken to a POW camp quietly, and when the war officially ended a few weeks later, he returned to a Germany that no longer existed in the way he had known it. The country he had fought for was gone. He never spoke publicly about what happened that day, but according to his family, he kept the Luger for the rest of his life, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of the day an American general chose mercy over force against a defeated enemy. What do you think? Was Patton right to let Miller keep his weapon, or was it too risky? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more untold stories from World War II, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes the most powerful moments in war are not the battles, but the decisions made when everything is on the line. They are the decisions made when someone must choose between pride and mercy, between strict rules and simple humanity.